I went home for a funeral and ended up in my best friend's bed. Ugh. Hell no. I groaned, my head slamming into something hard. Definitely not the plush pillow I'd been expecting. What the hell was this? I slowly cracked one eye open, but the dull pain shooting through my skull made me rethink the whole idea of waking up. A ghastly fog of last night's alcohol still clung to my brain, like a hangover wrapped in velvet. I had definitely overdone it, but hey, when the drinks are flowing, who's really counting, right? And that's when it hit me. The floor. It was... wood? Since when did I live in a place with wooden floors? I blinked, confused as hell, but then the panic set in. I was pretty sure I didn't own wooden floors. I lived in a penthouse, marble countertops, a view of the city that could make anyone think twice about leaving. What the hell happened? Where was my rug? The Italian cotton thing I'd carefully picked out myself. Where was it? I shoved myself up, my body immediately protesting the effort as I teetered on my feet and collapsed back onto the floor. Oh no. It really was wooden! I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to shake off the fog. This wasn't my room. Suddenly I heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, like they belonged to someone who knew their way around. I wasn't alone, and whoever it was way too comfortable here. That's when I saw him. A tall figure standing in the doorway. The last person I ever expected to see. Dean. Dean friggin' Carter. But what the hell? I mean, he looked like a version of Dean that belonged in a different life altogether. The last time I saw him, he was just a kid. Same as me, and now he was taller, broader, and had a beard that immediately set me off balance. Jesus Christ, did I drunkenly time travel? Dean? My voice came out weak, almost unrecognizable to my own ears. But Dean didn't look surprised. Hell, he didn't look much of anything. He was cool as hell, standing there in a suit, his arms crossed like he had all the time in the world to watch me scramble. Don't get too comfortable. We're late, he said as if he hadn't just completely caught me off guard by appearing in the doorway. The panic shot up in me again. Late? Late for what? He must have seen the confusion on my face because he wasted no time filling in the blanks. Your dad's funeral is in 30 minutes, Dean said, tossing me a duffel bag I vaguely remembered packing for the trip. It all flooded back. The drive, the mess, the reason I was back in this shithole town. It was my dad's funeral today. 2 hours later, the last of the funeral attendees trickled out, exchanging pleasantries that felt as empty as the air in the room. My dad, the local legend, long-serving mayor, beloved by everyone, was finally put to rest. Too bad all of that love they had for him didn't slide my way in the least bit. I couldn't help but wonder how different things could have been if I wasn't me. The moment I came out at 16, I became the town's favorite disappointment. A pariah. I was the town's mistake, born in a place where tradition ran deeper than anything else. I leaned back, the ice pack on my head doing little to numb the headache or the regret. My stomach churned. Whiskey and self-loathing were a bad combo. Dean had found me passed out at the bar after 11 hours of driving. I should have just slept instead of drinking. I hated this damn town. Just as I was about to leave, my father's lawyer waved me over. He looked too professional for a town like this. Callum, he said with a sympathetic look, I've got something to discuss with you. I sighed. What now? He cleared his throat. Your father left you the family home. He wants you to restore it. I froze. That house. The one I hadn't set foot in for over a decade. Why me? I muttered. Why would he leave that to me? The lawyer shrugged. It's his wish. The house has been vacant since his time in the nursing home. I guess he didn't want it abandoned. I hated this town. I hated that house. But it was his wish, and I couldn't ignore it. Fine, I said, the words tasting better. I'll think about it. The lawyer nodded, then turned and walked away, leaving me wishing things could be that easy for me too. 1 hour later, I found myself sprawled on a park bench, my mind a mess of conflicting thoughts. Part of me wanted to hightail it out of town, forget about my dad's will, and drive straight back to the city. The other part, the part I hated, wanted to at least try. To honor the man who raised me, even if I had no love for this place. I exhaled sharply, trying to push the conflicting emotions out of my head. I was just about to get up and leave when a voice interrupted my thoughts. Penny for your thoughts? I turned, squinting against the setting sun to see Dean standing there, an awkward half-smile tugging at his lips. But that wasn't what stopped me cold. It was the little girl by his side. Dean? I asked, confused. What the hell? He cleared his throat and nodded to the girl. Callum? This is Erica, my daughter. I didn't get the chance to introduce you to earlier. My brain stalled. Dean? A father? I blinked a few times, struggling to process it. I stood there, my thoughts swirling. Erica was bouncing on her feet, a complete contrast to her dad. Where Dean had seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, Erica was pure energy and innocence, looking up at me as if I were some mystery to be solved. Dean shifted uncomfortably under my gaze. Yeah, I know. It's a lot to process, he said quietly. I didn't expect to see you again. Not like this. I wanted to say more, but instead my mind was racing back to the past. The times Dean and I had shared, the unspoken bond we had since kindergarten. It felt like it was only yesterday when we were inseparable. I remember the pictures from my mom's old photo album. Dean with his arm around me, both of us grinning like the world was ours for the taking. He was my best friend, the best one I could ask for. And then, everything changed. When I came out at 16, the town had turned its back on me, but Dean stuck by me, even when things got hard. He stayed close, supportive. We had that connection, that chemistry that felt too heavy to ignore. One night after a long argument about everything we'd been through, we kissed. I could have sworn he felt the same way. But the moment I confessed, told him how I felt, how I was in love with him, he bolted. Ran from me like I was the plague, leaving me with nothing but confusion and the feeling of rejection. I never saw him again after that. I thought about all that now, as I looked at the man standing in front of me, with his daughter holding his hand. 10 years gone, and this was the first time I'd laid eyes on him. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened during that decade. The tension between us felt moldy, like so much unspoken history was floating between us. I rubbed the back of my neck, unsure how to break the silence. You, saw me at the bar last night, right? I ventured. You didn't recognize me at first, did you? Dean's face softened slightly, and he chuckled under his breath. I didn't. Thought you were just some guy passed out on a stool. His eyes darkened a bit as he continued, but when I realized who you were, I couldn't just leave you there. I felt the heat rise in my face at the thought of him finding me in that state. Yeah, well, this town isn't exactly good for my health, I muttered. But thanks. You've got a good eye for picking up the mess I've made. Dean didn't reply right away, but then he just rubbed the back of his neck again and sighed. Let's catch up properly. Over coffee. I know a place down the road. Before I could respond, the clouds overhead shifted, and the wind picked up. A storm was rolling in fast. Well, I guess that's out of the question, I said with a dry laugh. Dean chuckled, but his gaze didn't leave mine. I don't think you can head out of town in this weather, he said, his tone solid. Stay at my place tonight. It's too dangerous to drive like that. I opened my mouth to argue, but instead I found myself nodding. Dean gave me a small, almost apologetic smile. It's just one night, he added. Let's keep it simple. I wasn't sure if it was the rain or the gentleness in his voice, but I agreed. One night wouldn't hurt, would it? All right, fine, I said a little too quickly. He clapped me on the shoulder, the gesture surprisingly comforting. Good. It'll be good to catch up. And with that, I followed him to his car, unsure of what I was getting myself into. 1 week later. I should have known better than to follow Dean home that night. Sure, the night had started off innocently enough. Catching up at his place, talking about the past and present, his daughter Erica bouncing between us like a whirlwind. But somewhere along the way, it turned into a weird mix of nostalgia and tension, and I found myself talking about my dad's will. Dean had been all too eager to get me to see it through, mostly because, Like everyone else in town, he was starstruck by my father. I wasn't so sure, but Dean seemed convinced. The next day, Dean and I went to assess the house. He was a contractor after all and had done most of the renovations around town. I figured why not have him take a look. The damn house was a mess, and I had no idea where to start. But Dean? He just walked in like it was another day at the office. After we finished walking through the house, Dean laid it out. 2 weeks, he said. 2 weeks and we'll have this place looking better than it has in years. I mulled it over a minute, weighing my options. Then, almost reluctantly, I agreed. What else was I going to do? I had to at least try to do what my father had asked. What I didn't take into account was the weather. The damn weather in Lakespur had a way of turning everything into a slog. What was supposed to be a quick renovation had turned into a soggy 3-day ordeal of unproductivity. We were stuck. No choice but to stay inside and groan over drinks waiting for the storm to pass. As the days dragged on, the awkwardness that had hung between us from the moment I woke up on his bedroom floor seemed to fade away, inch by inch. We weren't just two people trying to avoid talking about the past anymore. We were reconnecting, like we had when we were kids, before everything got complicated. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real, and for once I wasn't trying to run from it. So I started, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. Life in the city's been... well, it's been good. Really good, actually. I could hear the pride in my own voice, but it didn't feel out of place. It felt earned. I'm doing interior decorating now. Kind of funny, I never thought I'd get into it, but it clicked. And after high school, moving to the city was the best decision I ever made. My aunt took me in. Gave me a shot, helped me get the ball rolling. Dean was quiet for a moment, watching me. Then he took a slow sip, his expression softening. I get it, he said, his voice low, as if weighing every word. I'm proud of you, Callum. His gaze flicked to the floor, avoiding mine for a second before he glanced back up. Me? I've got Erica now. She's the only thing that keeps me going, honestly. But I've messed up. Big time. I raised an eyebrow, surprised. Messed up how? He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. My marriage. Samantha. It fell apart because I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep living the lie that I was straight, you know? It was... hard. I couldn't be the person she wanted me to be, and I couldn't be the person I was pretending to be anymore. Dean. I started, but the words felt heavy. I knew we were circling something that neither of us was ready to touch yet. The conversation stalled for a beat before he decided to dive in. About that night. The kiss, he said quietly. The ones felt like they had a weight of their own. I froze. I could feel my face tighten. Don't, I muttered, putting my glass down, suddenly too exhausted to keep this going. I don't want to talk about it. Dean's jaw clenched like he wanted to say something but was holding back. No, I cut in, voice firmer than I intended. I don't want to. Not now. Hopefully not ever. I stood up quickly, my heart doing a drum solo as I moved toward the bedroom. I could feel Dean's eyes on me, but I didn't look back. The next morning. The rain let up the next morning, and for a brief moment the sun made a half-hearted appearance. Dean had warned me, said the clear skies were a hoax, but I was done. Done with the tension, the forced proximity, and the mess of the night before. I needed space. I needed out. The house wasn't going to fix itself, and maybe the fresh air would help clear my head. I figured an hour, maybe 2, and I'd be back before the storm hit again. But of course, I had the worst luck. An hour into working, the clouds turned dark again, and the rain came back, soaking me to the bone. With the state of the house, half-rotted beams and gaping holes, there was no escaping it. No hiding from the cold, wet reality of the place. And honestly, it wasn't just the house that needed fixing. I did too. 20 minutes later, I heard tires screeching. Dean. You should have listened, he muttered, tossing a towel my way. What the hell's wrong with you? I didn't have the energy to argue. I was shivering, feverish. I'm fine. You're soaked, you've got a fever, and you're being a stubborn idiot. He cursed under his breath, grabbing my arm. You're coming with me. Now. I opened my mouth to protest, but my vision blurred. My body betrayed me, and I slumped into a chair. Dean didn't hesitate. He dragged me to his truck, even as I mumbled about not needing his help. By the time we got to his place, I was running a fever. Dean threw a blanket over me and muttered, "You're lucky I even bothered." His hands were gentle, though, his concern obvious. And despite myself, I was grateful he'd come for me. 1 week later, I found myself stuck in a cycle of soup, tissues, and Dean's endless "I told you so" stares. Seriously, the man acted like he was personally overseeing a viral outbreak. The guest room had become my new home, and while I appreciated Dean and Erica's care, I was starting to go stir-crazy. Erica, with her boundless energy, kept me busy, though. She dragged me all over the house, showing off her cool rock collection. I pretended to be impressed, even though those rocks could have been from a toddler's sandbox. And the more time I spent with her, the more I saw pieces of Dean. Her laughter, her excitement, her fire. It was like she was Dean before life had worn him down. It was late one night after tucking Erica into bed that the weirdness kicked in. Dean and I sat on the couch, the silence between us thick enough to cut. The air was charged. I could feel the old chemistry bubbling up. For a second, it felt like we were on the edge of something. Something familiar and dangerous. I leaned in, just a bit too much, but then I pulled away fast, like I was being pulled out of a trance. Dean stayed silent for a beat, and then, without a word, followed me into the other room. He was closer than I realized, his presence impossible to ignore. "Callum, wait." His voice was soft but heavy with meaning. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make it weird." I clenched my fist, still avoiding his gaze. "Forget about it, Dean. It's nothing. The storm probably messed with our heads." I was lying, and we both knew it. He stepped closer, his voice quieter. "It's not just the storm. It's everything that happened between us. That kiss. I got scared, Callum. I wanted to shut him down, to dismiss it, but the words spilled out of me." "Scared?" I laughed bitterly. "You think you had it hard? I was 16, Dean. 16! I loved you, and you ran. I spent years wondering if something was wrong with me." Dean's face twisted with guilt. He opened his mouth, stopped, then tried again. "I loved you too, Callum. I didn't know how to love you. Not like that. I was a coward." "A coward," I repeated, the word cutting deeper than I expected. "Yeah, you were, but that's one of many words for it." Dean ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear on his face. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I want to make it right, but I know I can't. I don't deserve it." I shook my head. "I don't know how to move forward, Dean. How do I let you back in after everything?" "I know," he whispered, "but I'm here now. I'm not running away again." I couldn't take it. The anger, the hurt, everything was too much. My voice trembled as I pushed away from him. "Forget fixing the house. Forget me. I can't do this. I'm done here." The next morning, I was loading my duffel bag into the truck, the lump in my throat too big to ignore. I just needed to get back on the road and drive away from this mess. Then Dean appeared, standing a few paces away, arms crossed, unreadable as ever. I kept my head down, hoping he'd just go away. "Callum, we need to set this aside, at least long enough to finish the repairs." I shook my head. "I'm not doing this anymore. I can't stay here." Dean didn't blink. "If you want to leave, fine, but I'm finishing the repairs. Your dad wanted it, and I owe it to him. I can't leave it unfinished." I paused, my hands trembling. That damn obligation. I couldn't ignore it. "I'm not asking you to do that." "But I will anyway," Dean cut me off. "I'll see it through, even if it's just me." The silence hung between us. I hesitated, then exhaled, the fight leaving me. "Fine, but I'm doing it for my dad, not for you." Dean nodded, his expression softening just a bit. No words needed. 1 week later, the sky finally cleared and Dean wasted no time putting his plan into action. He had the whole town out there, lending a hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. He had rallied them by informing them about my dad's will, so it was no surprise that within a week the house was starting to come together. Walls were patched up, floors were scrubbed clean, and me? I was mostly hanging around, offering my usual brand of sarcastic commentary and pretending I wasn't silently freaking out about what was happening around me. I stopped staying at Dean's place. It wasn't like I was running from him. Okay, maybe a little, but the reality was that I just couldn't handle the proximity. So I slept in my truck for a while, until finally I settled into the house, one of the newly completed sections. The work was satisfying. The house was slowly coming to life, but I wasn't. Despite all the progress, I kept to myself. I hated it, but I couldn't help it. The feelings that kept resurfacing weren't just frustration at Dean or the situation. It was the fact that I was still really into him despite everything. I wanted to be angry. I tried to be angry. But every time I saw him or even heard him talking to Erica, my insides twisted in a way I wasn't ready for. It was easier to just hate myself for feeling so damn vulnerable than it was to face any of the reasons I still felt drawn to him. So I buried it, and tried to avoid looking at him for too long. It worked, sort of. After work one evening, I found myself dodging Dean's invitation for dinner. The idea of spending another night under his roof, of pretending like things were fine when they weren't, was too much for me. Instead, I headed to the bar, hoping a drink or two would drown out the nagging thoughts in my head. And there she was, Samantha Stern, Dean's ex-wife and Erica's mother, sitting at the bar, nursing a glass of wine like she didn't have a care in the world. We locked eyes for a moment before she gave me a small smile and motioned for me to sit. We hadn't talked much over the years after high school, but here we were, picking up where time had left us. I heard about your dad, she started, her tone quiet, respectful. Sorry I couldn't make the funeral. My job in the city. It kept me from coming sooner. I nodded, giving a half smile. It's fine. I get it. Everyone's got their own lives. We fell into a comfortable conversation after that, catching up like old acquaintances. But eventually we ended up on the topic of Dean. How was he doing, she asked, her voice soft as if she didn't want to pry. I let out a bitter chuckle, swirling the drink in my hand. He's fine, I guess. Still the same guy he was 10 years ago. At least that's what he wants everyone to think. Samantha didn't say anything for a while, but I could see the understanding in her eyes. You still hold a grudge, she finally said, her words quiet but pointed. I thought you'd let that go by now. I sighed. I know I should, but I can't help it. It's just hard. I never had anything stable, never even tried after that. I was always afraid of being rejected again. That kiss, that moment, it messed me up in ways I can't explain. Samantha's expression softened and she leaned in a little, lowering her voice. Dean didn't have it easy either, you know. For years he was miserable. He tried, God knows he did, but nothing helped. I gave him all the love I could and it never made a difference. He couldn't get over the guilt, the fear, and he lived with that lie, his lie about who he really was every day. It ate him alive. That's why I eventually left. I stared at her, stunned. You knew he was gay and still married him. She nodded. I've always known since we were kids. I saw it in the way he looked at you. But I let him keep that lie going. I went along with it because I thought he could get past it. But it only made things worse. You weren't the only one who got hurt, Callum. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I was quiet for a long moment, digesting it all. I don't know if I can forgive him, Samantha. I don't know if I can just let it all go. She placed a gentle hand on mine. I'm not asking you to forgive him right away. Just try to meet him halfway. If your dad's passing taught us anything, it's that we don't have forever. Don't let this go on any longer than it already has. 3 days later, Samantha's words clung to me like smoke for the rest of the week. You don't have forever. It kept echoing in my head, drowning out everything else. It ate at me, not at the part of me that still wanted to hate Dean, still wanted to hold on to the anger because it was easier than facing the truth. Meanwhile, Dean had finally caught the hint. He gave me space, stayed away, and honestly, it made everything worse. I hated myself for pushing him away. I hated how much I wanted to see him, talk to him, but I couldn't bring myself to face him. Not after everything. I knew now what he'd been through, what he'd struggled with for years. And that made me feel like the biggest jerk on the planet. So I decided to take Samantha's advice, meet Dean halfway. I didn't know what I was hoping for, but I knew I needed to do something. One more night to wrap things up, one last time, and maybe, just maybe, I could finally be honest with myself and put this to rest. As the last of the work wrapped up, I turned to Dean, and before I could second-guess myself, I said, "Hey, let's go grab dinner." His brows furrowed in surprise, like he didn't know what to say. I wasn't sure either, but I knew I couldn't keep running from this. "You want to grab dinner?" I nodded, swallowing down the lump in my throat. "Yeah, let's talk." Dean's eyes softened, but it was hard to read. Maybe he knew this wasn't just a dinner. This was something we both needed. We ended up at a diner, a quiet place with cracked vinyl booths and the smell of coffee in the air. We sat across from each other in silence for a while, before finally I broke the silence. "I saw Samantha," I said, and immediately Dean stiffened. I could see the worry flash across his face. He was expecting something bad, I could tell. I didn't want to drag it out. "She told me everything," I continued, my voice low. "About you. About what happened." I didn't know, Dean. I didn't know any of it. Dean slumped a little in his chair, exhaling a long, shaky breath. I wasn't trying to hide it. I just didn't know how to say it, how to deal with it, with you. "I get it," I said, my voice quieter than I meant to be. "I thought I did too, but it wasn't just that night. It wasn't just you leaving. It was everything after. All the years. All the time I spent thinking you didn't care. But I never stopped loving you." The words were out before I could stop them, and I braced myself for the weight of them. But Dean didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He just looked at me, his expression torn. "I never stopped loving you either, Callum," he whispered. I didn't know how to be the person you needed. I was terrified, and instead of facing it, I ran. I thought I could get over it, I admitted, but I couldn't. And then, after all this time, it's like I never really moved on. You were always there, in my head. The silence that followed was thick, but it was different this time. Less painful, less heavy. We didn't finish our meal, but we stayed, talking through everything. About the past, about the hurt, about how everything had changed and how we had both been living in the shadows of that one night. By the time we left, the air between us was clear. The past wasn't gone, but maybe it didn't have to define us anymore. We walked through the town side by side, the cool evening air wrapping around us. "You know," I said, glancing around, "Lakesbur's beautiful, but I never missed it." Dean chuckled. "Never left it." "You've never left?" "Nope," he said, his tone light, but there was a deep sadness in his eyes. "Lakesbur's all I know. All I've ever known." We arrived at his cabin, the place he had built with his own hands. It looked like home, a real home. The kind I'd been running from for so long. Dean stopped at the door, and there was this moment, this weird hesitation. He went for a handshake, but I went for a hug. For a second, we froze. Then we both laughed. A small, awkward laugh that only made the tension fade even more. "Ah, fuck it, I'm going to kiss you now," I muttered. I leaned in. No hesitation, no planning, just the pull of everything I'd held back. Dean met me halfway, his lips on mine in a kiss that erased years of waiting and unspoken words. When we pulled apart, Dean's breath was shaky, his eyes raw, but there was no regret, just relief. He didn't say a word. Instead, he pulled me back in, his arms holding me tighter than ever. This kiss was deeper and filled with conviction. It was long overdue. 1 week later. To thank the town folks, I threw a little party in the now-finished house. Thankfully, Lakesbur's weather kept the crowd short. Nobody wanted to brave the cold for long, which suited me just fine. Later that evening, I found myself on the couch, curled up under a blanket with Dean while Erica was glued to some kids show that only a 5-year-old could find entertaining. Dean had been unusually quiet, so I raised an eyebrow. "What's up?" I asked, nudging him. He sighed, looking at me like he couldn't believe what he was about to say. "I can't believe you're leaving tomorrow." feels like I just got you back. I felt that same pang in my chest, and for a second, I didn't say anything. Then I sighed, resting my head on his shoulder. I know. I've been thinking about it too. And, I think you should move to the city. Dean froze, eyes wide, and I quickly clarified. Not with me or anything. I mean, yeah, that's a whole other conversation, but all I'm saying is, you've given too much to Lakespur. You deserve a fresh start, somewhere new. Plus, Samantha's there. Erica could see her more often. Dean took a long moment to think it over, the silence stretching out. Then he leaned in, kissed me gently, and gave a small smile. I'll sleep on it. Conclusion. The next day, I packed up and left Lakespur. Erica cried so hard I thought her little heart might break, and Dean stood there, silent, watching me go, his eyes full of everything we hadn't said. I didn't want to leave either, but it was time. Dean couldn't make the move right away. The pull of Lakespur was too strong, the life he'd built here too rooted. But we kept in touch. Texts, calls, me swinging by on weekends to see him and Erica. Slowly he started to come around. 2 months later, after all the back and forth, he finally took the plunge. Dean packed up his life in Lakespur and drove into the city, ready for whatever came next. And as he pulled into my driveway, the weight of the past seemed lighter, like the first real step towards something we both knew we needed. For the first time in a long time, we were on the same page. The end. How would you deal with being ignored after confessing your love? Tell us all about it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome!